Hello. Yeah, we're on. Okay, charcoal today. One of my favourites actually. This is a portrait of some famous artist. I'm only joking. With glazes of colour. Charcoal, gesso paper, texture, collage, scratching, glazes, varnish. That's it. So we're going to try this lovely picture that Christine has kindly donated. She did tell me who it was, I forgot actually. She'll have to do it again. So it's black fella, yeah. I want to try and loosen this up really quite a bit instead of being too fussy, yeah. I've just been playing about with some texture actually. And we don't actually have to have charcoal all over the paper. So because we're on gesso, yeah, we can just do one side if you like. And then we're going to blend all that. So we get a mid-tone value. You can put textures on. People are playing with spirits and squirting things like this and letting it blend. And then working over it, because this gives you a mid-tone. It's quite interesting what you can do. You can splash water on your charcoal. You can throw dust, charcoal dust. Yeah. So if you get like a brush and just kind of splat it on, and you can actually take it off. Can you see how soft it is? So we can do all sorts of things. Splattering. The thing is with acetate, which is what that is, it's nail varnish remover. It dries very quick, it just evaporates. Whereas if you use water, you can get a similar effect with water with textures, yeah. But you need to dry it off, you know. So we can splatter this. It's got quite not a very nice complexion really, because it's got quite a few, you know, spots. As I say, teenage spots, but I think it's a teenager. Anyway, so we can splatter water on like that, you know, and get a mid-tone value kind of thing. And create textures before you start. But the thing is, if you're using water, see that's dry, and if I use water, it's going to be wet. It's still going to be wet, can you see there? So that's where I've splashed the water, and it just gives me these dark shapes. I can actually probably do this more here, where he's got the marks in the face and things like that, yeah. But you can play about with all that kind of thing, which gives you a nice interesting shape. It's actually dry too. So the water will pick up the charcoal, whereas the acetate moves it away. Alright, so lots of different things you can start with. So we'll probably do quite an easy one today, quite quick. I'm going to fill the picture. You can't see anything kind of down here, so because it's central and this eye is more or less there, so I wouldn't start like that. I just draw an egg that some people don't like, but other people we draw this egg shape, okay? Because if you take everything off your head, you're left with an egg. Ugh, gruesome. Anyway, so he's got a slight tilt, which is like that, because he's leaning backwards. So what's happening, this eye, the nearest one, is going further higher than, you know, because you're not quite looking up at him. I think you're on the eye level, but everything's going that way because he's tilting, okay? So you always put a halfway line like there in the middle of the egg, more or less, yeah? But because he's tilting backwards, you get a curve, which is like that. So this straight line and the curve here. So that line, the axis becomes a curve as well. And we can say it's 3/4, so it's like between this eye, the centre of the nose and the other eye. So it's like a 3/4 view, which is what we do prefer. It's more interesting, yeah? So again, because it's charcoal, we can just rub out anything that we don't want. yeah, with a piece of tissue. You don't need a rubber. So that's the centre line for the features, and then that's the centre line for the eyes. You have to imagine that going around the back of the head to give you this ellipse, yeah. So where this centre line, it's that curved line, is the middle of the face. It's like the top of his nose, and that automatically gives you this other eye, which is going around the corner. Can you see? And you got the shape there, because that's the eyebrow, then the shape of the nose, and then you've got his top eyelid, and that's where the iris is. So it actually gives you the shape where the cheekbone is and things like that, and his forehead, which comes from that. So here we've got a shape at the top of that iris, at the top of the socket is where the other eye is going to be. Now that is bigger because it's nearer, so it's more of a circle, and you can actually see where the eyebrow gives you that lovely shape. And because we can't see the eye because it's quite dark, we can just see the top eyelid like that. We're going to just put that dark shape in. It's a little bit easier because we don't have to mull about with eyes and things. It's just the shape like that. So that's one eye. We've got the shape in the middle. So there is like the corner of the eye, which is very dark, inside where the nose is going to be. Okay. Because we've got that curve and that curve, everything kind of curves then around the back of the head, yeah, to give you this ellipse. But what we need to find out now, if you look at that nose, he's got a really straight nose, and then here, and because he's a black fella, so what's what you're saying? Because a black fella, we've got that kind of wider nose there, and the nostril, yeah. So that gives you the shape, more or less straight away, yeah, coming down to his chin. So because we move the head, the chin moves round. The philtrum, which is the dark shape there, which is a U shape, yeah, which blends into the bit under the nostrils. See, that is an important bit though, because that is the light catching the tip of his nose, and we need to know where that is because it makes the nose appear as if by magic. So then we've got that philtrum leads to his top lip. Now we can see this one, which is quite dark, it's in shadow. The middle muscle gives you that curve in the bottom lip, and then the bottom lip's quite full naturally, like that. And then we get really, really dark areas here. So it's a big, interesting dark shape under, because I think he's got a beard as well, yeah, like that, from the side of his face going into his moustache, and then going up into the jawline, like that. So you can actually just blend all that together, and then we can create the neck when we get round to doing head. So the reason I do it this way is it's really quick. You can get a neck, if you want to lighten it, you can get a nice, I always say don't try and get a lighten. I mean, I'm not giving the guy a picture, anything like that. So you got the shape of his hair, it's quite curly, at the back of his head, because the hair is always on top of the egg, so that makes it bigger. So you got that nice negative shape. And we look at the distance then between the eyes and his ear. So that distance is the same. So the ear is really towards the back of the head. So if you have another line there, halfway between the egg, the ear is behind that line, and then it goes in at an angle. And the bottom of his ear naturally falls, his earlobe falls on level with the bottom of his nose. And we all know that. So then we just put in the dark shapes around the ear. You've got a lovely light area there, and then it's quite dark here, top of the ear, and then we can't see the hair at the back of his head. All we can see is the shape of the neck because it's curving away. So it comes in, then goes that way, and then we get the shoulder, if you want to put the shoulder on. Now I know you can see his hand, yeah, but be careful because I don't think we want to bother with the hand too much because it's only just visible. You could block the whole thing in and then add something later. But we've got a lovely shadow coming from here all the way down. It's quite straight. It's quite a dark shape. And we just blend all that into the neck and the shape of his face and everything. The side of his nose. So that distance and that distance. Yeah, you've only got a small area there. And then we're going to start using a cloth. a tissue to bring out the light. I'll soften the area, and then we're going to use a rubber to remove the light areas, which is the tonal values. Okay, and we can draw the shape of his t-shirt if you like. It's up to you. Creases, anything. I'll just draw it and leave it and let it blend away into nothingness. Okay, that's more or less it. I'll look through the viewfinder, yeah. So it's kind of really tilting slightly. But this then in the tissue, we can use this for his hair as well, because it's quite, it's quite light over this side. It's a bit darker near his ears. So this tissue is going to take off very subtle tones on the side of the cheekbone, which is catching quite a bit of light, and then we're going into this area underneath the bottom eyelid and the top eyelid, which the rubber is going to take off, and then into the eye side of his nose, that shape there. And like I say, I'm going to just splatter a bit of water just around that area. I've got a nice big kind of triangle shape there, and again I'll just put this back in because that's the nostril, and it's casting a shadow like that into this dark area under the nose, which is going across, and then you can just see the top of his lip like that. So here we've got this dark shape at the side of the nostril. This is the bit that's quite textured really. So what we could do, like I just said, is just get a damp brush, test it out somewhere first, and then just splatter it around there and leave it to dry a little bit. So while that's drying, creating textures, I mean, you can always go over it later. The top of his forehead is quite flat. It's a bit darker in the middle, and then it goes lighter over there, darker there. So we've got the tissues doing all this. And at the front of the head, you can have quite soft. The nose and the nostril, quite a nice big shape. You can just see this cheek on the other side. There's a lovely light there as well. And then the lip going around the corner, the bottom lip, which is just around there. We can use quite a lot of light on that muscle, and then that muscle's going around the corner, and it's going soft, and this is quite dark. So if we, oh, it's drying up, yeah, just dry it a little bit. Oh, so you get these kind of textures on his face, which give you like a shaving rash, which is probably what he's got. This part of the eye is in shadow as well. We've got some nice, just kind of reflected lights going to the nose. The beauty of charcoal, just use your finger to blend things. And then I'll just redraw this eye. So as we're coming up to the eyebrow here, like that, we've got the shape of the top eyelid, which is quite light, and that goes down to the corner of the eye. And then this is the pupil, which is quite dark, you can't see any reflection. And then from the top eyelid you get the bottom eyelid, which is a dark shape there, and then it goes, I always say don't put the bottom eyelid in, but when you get that dark shape you need to just have a little bit of dark underneath, so you get that shape. The side of the nose again, and then the nostril, because I've just blended all that and you can just see the nostril over that side. So quite dark here, and then you've got a line of light just coming down here. Okay. This bit, again, we can just blot that in. Again, you can add textures around there for his beard, if you wanted to. And then the corner of his mouth, you've got a nice darker. Where the lips meet is always slightly darker, especially in the middle and the corner. So you got this kind of smiley face. We make that ear a little bit bigger. Start to look at things and make things slightly bigger because of the shape of things, okay? And it doesn't matter because we're just going to take it off again. And then use the rubber. So we can put that lovely shape in the ear, nice shapes, you've got any ears, and then this thing as it comes down. Okay, and again, because it's a little bit higher near the nostril, we've got a great lovely shadow coming down from your earlobe onto his neck, like that. Yeah, interesting things, these shadows. Okay. More light top of the eyebrow and more light the top of the head. You will get a very, very strong highlight on his neck. This bit, you can either let it blend or just leave it as it is, unfinished, whatever. And then try and do some of the hair, which is, you know, tight curls like that. And we can leave it more or less. So I'm going to use a rubber now. Now he's softened everything. There's a little bit on his neck here. So where the neck is, going down to his shoulder. It's actually less than that, because if you look at the ear, it's coming from about there. Okay, so that's the background. Really interesting kind of shadows. Right, the rubber, you don't fix it at this stage because you need to take more light out. So if I start over this side and say, right, he's got a lovely kind of reflected light there on his forehead, which goes into the creases in his forehead, yeah? And then this one is more like a block of tone. And if you're doing creases in the forehead, don't kind of draw them too much. Try and just leave the crease as a tone like that, and it will work. It will work for itself. Here we've got a lot of light, and that's going that way towards the cheekbone. It's coming up here. This is a little bit lighter as you go to the top of the forehead. So that gives you this shape. Quite light there, not as light going back to his, in fact I want to put that in actually, his sideburn. It's a little bit in because if you look at the ear, you've got that really nice light bit there between his sideburn and his ear, you can see. And then when you get to the ear, you've got these lovely shapes in there. So always break your rubber in half so you get a nice point for doing detail if you want to, or cut it in half, not break it. You've got the inside of the ear again, catching a lot of light just around the edge. Nice big area there, and this area like that. Then we get to the kind of interesting part where the eyelid just catches the light there, then it blends into the eyebrow, the cheekbone, sorry. And then we get the bit under the eye there, that's where the bottom eyelid is, it just goes under the eye, and then we get the cheekbone as well. So there, we're just lifting off a little bit. As we come into this, the nose section, there's a bit of shadow from his eyelashes, I think, on his nose, and as you're coming up, it's a little bit more light here, and then it goes around the corner, because it's a reflected light, that goes around his nostril, again, and then underneath there, they've got that reflection on his cheek. So this is the light on the top of his top lip. Alright, so he has got, I know he's got his moustache, but you got the shape of the top lip, like that, and the shadows. Just soften things. Here we've got that part of the face with this shaving brush. The side of the head, we come in from the ear, and then we got this nice highlight here, which is blending into his cheekbone. Right. You can take out areas at the back of him. You can take out the back of his head actually, because something like that. Or if you want to leave texture, you can do. It's up to you. I like just above the eyebrow is a lot lighter. I always say don't blow the charcoal, it starts getting airborne, but then there's only me in the room. So that lovely shadow there just curls round, lovely light here. The lip, we've got a nice shadow there, not light, shadow, reflected light, and then this muscle, very strong, and then you've got a really hard edge to the part of the lip as it blends into the rest of the mouth. That's a little bit higher up actually, but doesn't matter. So we're just looking at simple shapes for that. Bottom of his eyeball, slightly lighter than, and then we can create a few marks and lines, textures, whatever. If you're doing his hair, just scumble some of the light areas. We could do this slight, little bit lighter around that the top of his head, and as that comes down, you hit the light on his forehead because it's quite light there, and then it disappears, and then you get the shape. Okay. So again, you can see a little bit of light in that eye, a bit of light on the top eyelid there, reflected light, something in the eyeball, and then we're getting the light on his cheek again, which is not very strong, but nice corner, and then the shape. And see, lovely. Soften the mouth later, get the shape of that bottom lip, like that. That's his. There is a nice negative here actually at the side, but that brings out the shape of his hand. So if you want to start doing the shape of his hand, that's fine. So we can leave that like that, and then as we're coming down, we get the shadow from his neck and the back of the neck. So as you get down to the shoulder, you're getting more light there because it's sitting the top of his shoulder like that. Okay, stand back, keep it simple. We can use a bit of compressed charcoal as well. Make sure the eyes are still lined up. You've still got that curve, yeah? So we want to keep the dark and the shape like that. So easy to move one eye and lose it. Again, it just doesn't look. So we want to keep the eyeball or the iris in that shape, and there you can just see the dark bit there. So we actually look at that, use a sharp bit, we've got a light, he's got the bridge of his nose, and it comes down into the curved bit, like that. Alright, so I can take off some lights where he's got some markings like that in the face, not being unkind to him, but that's how he looks. And then we light on the side of his face, like that. So the bridge here and the bottom would be the lightest part of the nose. I'm quite happy with it. You don't need to do too much with that. If you want to do negative space around the back of his neck, that's quite interesting. It's a nice set. We can lighten that area there, and then we can darken it later if we need to. Background is really important, yeah, and that just blends into everything that's going on up here. Yeah. If you wanted to blend all this with slightly darker than the light there. There's a lot of rubber, bits of rubber stuck to the picture at the moment as well, so that can get that off. And it got me thinking about this hand now. It's like just the fingers and the knuckle, whatever. Quite dark, isn't it? So that's a big dark shape. Okay, lovely shape for that's this. Yeah, so that's the knuckle. That's the thumb, sorry. And then you get a shape around the thumb, which is quite dark again. And from there you get a light bit there. See, the less you do in the foreground, the better really, because you want it to just look like it's part of the picture, and it's coming out. So like the back of his collar would overlap like that, and then you'd have these light areas because shirt's quite dark. So to do the light, to the folds in the cloth, just take off some light. Like that. All right. Everybody saying yes? Good. And we're working along. No. You don't have to work along, you can always do it in your own time, like I said before. I'm just doing it in an hour. Right, got some compressed charcoal, which is black pastel. You can still see, I've not moved anywhere, but no. Which is black pastel. And this is I'm going to use for stronger shadows, yeah, especially around the eyes and things like that, because I've got that lovely shape now. So your black pastel is a lot harder to remove, so this is why we don't use a lot of it. I'm just putting it next to areas that are very dark, yeah, are very light, I should say, like that. So I've got the shape inside the nose, which brings out the bridge of the nose, usually at the top, and then we got the shape at the side of the top eyelid, because it's going round the corner and it's also coming down here then. The same over here, and then we can't see where it disappears, but we can see this lovely shape like that, and then underneath the top eyelid's going to be very dark, that overlaps the bottom, and then we can see the iris. If you want to start putting the iris in, you know, think about a bit of light at the bottom, and then this goes slightly darker here, and then darker here. We'll just blend that, and then that's your cheekbone. Nostrils, this one is quite obvious, and it's just a big shape. This one is going away from you, so it's going around the corner. We can emphasise that light on top lip, which is a nice interesting shape there. Blend it in. And then the shadow coming from the corner of his nose. You don't have to block it all in, just do the shape of the shadow. It's much more interesting. Eyebrows, quite dark as they come in. The bit between the eyes is always a little bit darker, and then the forehead. The corner of his mouth, top lip, very dark. Middle muscle, very dark. You start getting reflections there, actually. And that gives you the shape of the bottom lip. And the bottom lip comes from there. It's very dark here, which is the shape that brings out the lip. And here it's quite, it's in a bit of a shadow. Got some hair from his beard, things like that going on. The bottom earlobe, again, you can block that in, or you can just draw around it to give you the shadow. And then you've got the shape here to the back of his neck here. Top of his ear, or the dark, just at the top of his ear. So this is black pastel, I'm totally anti. So black pastel is a lot darker. Inside the crease on his nostril, things like that. Okay. Nothing too much here. We just have a line down in the shadow. That blends into his lips, you can't see. And charcoal gets on your chest, that's why I say go blow it about. We're going to glaze it and fix it and do everything we do to it. So quite a bit to do yet. That should be okay. Stand back, just make sure you've got everything in the right place. Just on the chair. Put my black stuff down and lost it. A bit more. Yeah, so I'm just going inside the eye here, because where the tear duct is, it's quite strong down there. You can't actually see it, but you know. After a while, you know that certain things are there, so you can emphasise them. Right? Smell like that. Let that blend into the nose. Okay, fix it. So we're going to fix it. Now, I'm going to reverse spray. So I'm always going on about you don't need fixative, just use hairspray. Well, I've actually got fixative, so I'm going to see how it goes actually, because it's usually quite waterproof. So I've got a tin of fixative. Look at the size of that, quite expensive too. And then from a distance, I'm just going to spray. But I want to make sure I get the pastel, which is the dark, very dark bit. Okay, I'm near that to dry. Oh God, stinks. Need that to dry off. Should be okay. All you have to do then is, if you touch the compressed and it doesn't move, then it should be okay for glazing. Doesn't matter about the other stuff, because that'll be okay. And I'm going to use a damp cloth to remove the rest of it. So thinking about the guy, black skin's got beautiful colours in it actually. It's you got siennas, you got purples, you got blues, you got all sorts of things. So we can have lots of these colours. You can have a colour of the whole thing, or you can just put wipes of colour on. What I'm thinking about is there might be more warmer colour where the light's hitting him on this side and cooler colours over this side. So just in one kind of wash, you know what I mean? So I'm not actually, I'm not going to go everywhere with this one. I'm just going to put the change from one side to another and let it run. So I've got some alizarin crimson. It's acrylic paint, yeah. I've got some ultramarine blue. Lots of quite a bit of water. Yeah, don't get your blue and your burnt sienna mixed up, because, or mixed together, because it's quite, it makes a burnt umber and it goes brown and mucky. So like I said, I'm going to go warm over this side, so we can go warm in here, over there, go a bit thicker if you like. If you keep scrubbing, it pulls it off. And then over this side I'm going kind of purple. I've got a bit of blue as well, so I'm going to go blue. Fellas, you can have blues in his hair as well, like that. And let the water do some of the washes. Yeah, soften it. Nice areas. Just darken a bit more. Let the paint do the work. Right, you can take it off again as well. Yeah. So we can just soften things like that. Soften areas. If it's running too much, just dry your brush off and go that way. And we can always add more sienna. Yeah? And you can glaze it again later, it doesn't really matter. So you don't have to cover up everything on the picture. I know we do a lot of the time, but we do. But we're not doing today. We're just going to leave those lovely drips and runs, alright? Dry it off. Don't start rubbing out until you dry off the paint. Alright, you can alter things. I'm thinking about actually putting some more blue on this side of his face, because he's got a beard, you know. And I was saying, if you do this, don't do this with ladies, but it's okay with fellas, because they've got shadowy beards. Dry that off, so a bit more blue there, and that's cooled it down a bit. Yeah, so we can still use the charcoal, we can still use the, yeah, we're using the charcoal and still use the colour. I'm going back in now with the damp cloth. So the damp cloth is actually doing the same thing that I did with the rubber, yeah? Because we're looking at the highlights really, and they're already there, but I'm just making them stronger now. So we're going into these little areas that change direction, and because the warmth's there and the cool areas that's coming through, a lot of the colour you're going to get rid of. So yeah, you can just pull off top of the eyebrow, again side of the face. It just changes the whole thing now because you've knocked it back. See, I'm knocking it back, the light on the eyelid and things like that, front of his iris, getting a reflected light, beautiful. A little bit of light there, side of his cheek, you see, cheekbone. That's a bit in shadow, so it's cool. So if I start coming down here like I did with the rubber, just take the light off his nose, and that reflected light there, and the nostril in the background. Stick your nail in the cloth, and then the light on his top of his lip, and then you get the filtrum bit. You could just see curving, and then we get this nostril, which is quite light, blends into the side of the nose, bridge of your nose, which blends into this area, top of the face. So the middle of the nose is quite light as well. If you look at noses, you've got these, where the bridge is, and the light on the side here, which goes into the nostril. There's a bit of white, not a lot, just a bit. Yeah. So that's that bit. Then we move over to the cheek, and the way the nose blends into the cheek, yeah, and that kind of shape. Like that. Side of the nostril, quite big area that actually, and then the top of the top lip, lots of light there. That brings the top lip out, and we're also going to darken that a bit. Just underneath the nose, where the nostril sits, you've got reflected lights. Now you might not see them, but if you can get them in, it gives it a 3D effect, you can see. We're going to darken that area later. We've got a lovely light here, and just here, and then you get in some shadows. So this bit goes into the bottom eyelid, a lot of highlight there, which blends into his cheekbone. There's a bit there. You're just seeing these little shapes in his face. You can actually draw around them, and then pick them out with the cloth. The side of his head. As we get to this bit, again, I'm just going to pick some water up and do a bit of splattering there. So what will happen, you leave the water for a bit and take it off and you get little white spots. So it saves you trying to paint the white spots, because you can't do it. You just end up with a load of blobs that look like paint marks. Yeah. Top of his ear, inside there, all this is the sideburns. And we get to the bottom of the ear, nice and light. Inside there, lots of reflected lights. We can glaze his ears, make them warmer later. And just look at the shapes around things now. So it's bringing that down past that. That's where the beard is. And that's how you're getting the light on the back of the neck, like that. Which is going slightly lighter, like I said, as you get down to the shoulder. And this bit, if I just wipe an area off. Where I've got some water spots, and that'll give me some of those shapes. So it just gives you a bit of texture around there. Yeah? It's not easy to paint things like that, and I'm just getting a little bit of a shape, where you're getting the light just around his, at the side of his mouth. Yeah, just gives you that texture. So here, a little bit lighter. Again, I got some splashes there, which is awesome. And then we get in the top of it, if you're doing that. I kind of like that blue, so I'm going to leave the blue. I'm going to leave this shape, just take his forehead up a little bit more. Reflected light. Inside the background. So if it gets a bit too wet, too dry, put some water on again. To do the background. And we try and get rid of the line, because you don't have a pen mark or a line. You can do if you want, but you can try and get rid of that broad line, so it's one tone changing it to another. It's much kind of more realistic. His hair, I might not bother too much, because I quite like the shape and the way there's a bit of light here, back of his head. I could just blend up around that here. The cloth's a bit dirty, so it's giving me that other tone. Again, knuckles, if you're doing knuckles, you can just have a few, the thumbs here, and then there's a shape down here, which is the bit between his, so you've got the knuckles, folds in the skin, and it blends into, you can just see where the light's catching a bit of his thumb. That's all the information you need, and then blend that into the background. Yeah? Something like that. If you want to put it in, it's up to you. You don't have to. So bit of reflection on his shirt, I think it is actually. Not going to touch the beard. I am going to make the lip slightly softer by removing reflected lights in there. That's what you would get, and the bottom lip is very light. Yeah, that goes in the corner, and it changes when it gets to the middle. It's quite light on top, and it goes that way around the side of the lip. That's it. Yeah. Inside here you can soften just a little bit. You don't want it to be too dark. You can soften shadows, and the top here, soften that. Okay, so here you've got the jawline, having here. Blend that. Bit of reflection. Alright, yeah. Stand back. I might put the eyes in again with some compressed charcoal, black pastel, sorry. This stuff. So because you've knocked it all back, I'll just do the ears because we want to get that Don't want it to be too dark in there. You want reflected lights. We have got a highlight there, see, and in there, and it goes soft. And then it blends into Sally's face. Quite a dark shape here, so if I go back in, put the iris in and then blend that. So I can't actually see where the iris finishes. Yeah. There's other little shapes as well, like around the nose. Just draw them, blend them in. The top of this, top eyelid. If you wanted to put colour in, you could later. And then we've got the side of the mouth. Now where the lips meet is always dark. In the corner, and then it blends into some of his beard, moustache, whatever. That's quite dark there. In the middle here, and at the top, and then that blends out into that shadow. Nostril, bottom of the ear, lobe, and shadows. Top of the eyelid. Eyebrow. Bring out that shadow on the lip. Could darken that a bit actually, it wants to come further from there. Okay, if you want to just add little bits of darker hair, put it on, take it off. That brings out the top of his ear. That's quite interesting. Go that way. Again, just under there. Hair around the back of his head, if you want to. Some of the shadows here, quite deep, quite dark, and then we get this lovely reflected light. Shadow, sorry, not reflected. Okay, I'll take out this bit, and I quite like that interesting shape, which gives you the shape of his hand, or his knuckles, and then around the thumb. You're getting these lovely little creases, and it's dark in there. Yeah, so if I look at for a pupil, might be better trying to do it actually, like that. Found the eye, bring that down, and then we've got this really nice shape. That's the corner of his nose. That's going up there, and this disappears into that shape. Alright, little bits of marks. I'm going to put the collar back in. It's dirt there. And then it goes light again. Okay. Now we can fix it. If you want to give him brown eyes, you can't see them, but I presume he's got brown eyes. Let's take the light off the bottom a little bit. Dip your finger in some sienna, put it in. Take it off again. It's just a little reflection. Any pastel is going to be more light on this reflections. Side of the mouth, side of the lip, that little bit there, eyelid. If you want to just hint at a reflection, which will be coming at the top of the eye, and then the light catching here, and when you use the pastel, just be careful you don't do too much. Top lip, bottom lip, sorry. It goes like that, doesn't it? Got creases in it. And I'm going to fix it. Do a bit more glazing if you want. I can leave them. Depends on the time. I'm just going to go a little bit lighter here, where his hairline is. And make it look like he's got some kind of hairs on his top lip. And the neck. So I'll fix it. Again. I don't want it to be too perfect. I want it to be as though you've thrown some charcoal and some paint and made a face. Yeah, that's what I'm after. So I'll let that dry again. Was it 10 to? And we'll give it another little warm glaze on this side. And actually, that's coming down like that. Yeah. You can just carry on rubbing out all the time. As long as you don't varnish it, you cracked it. Okay, dry that. Anything that's very wet. And get a small brush, big brush. Just gonna warm up the neck again. And his ear. Start with first. Bit blue. Bit of alizarin. Bit blue. Dry a bit. More light, cheekbone, side of the head. Yeah. Little bits. Okay, it's still there. Good. Because I'm going in a minute. The light here, nice and dark on his neck. I wouldn't try and do all his hair. It's impossible to do all that. It's not impossible. Don't try and do all his hair. You'll be doing it all day. Mind, some of you are doing everything. So depends how much you want to achieve in your portrait or your art. I'm not selling it in, so it doesn't really matter. But I put a little bit of light there, just in his eye. Like that. I'm not putting it car. If you get some alizarin and go underneath the nose, because it's in shadow. And that works for the shadow. and a reflection around the nostrils. Yeah. Too easy, isn't it? You want to draw into it again? Fine. Charcoal, compress. Some hair. Just be careful you don't do too much. Bits of information. Beautiful negative there, which is the light through the side of his beard and his neck, I think, like that. So this is what we want. There's some of these little bits of information. Very glassy eyes, put the pupils in. There's always a lovely ring around the iris, makes it nice and dark. Have a bit more dark here. And I know there's quite a bit there, but I'm going to leave it disappearing. Okay, back of his hair, you've got a dark shape, and then it just blends in. You get the line up, rub the line out. And then we're going to varnish this. If you varnish it, you can glaze it as much as you want. And it won't come off. But you just have a careful, you know, you've done enough. Okay, lovely dark eye lid, top eyelid. It's the nearest thing to you, apart from his ear. You can use a bit of sienna on his lip as well. Beat up with your finger paints. Yeah, warm it up. A bit more light at the top. This is why you have to be on gesso paper. And I'm going to leave all of it, like I said, like reflected lights. Right, you could start doing lights, simple things like this in the background, just to bring out the light to the back of his head, because it occupies this kind of space, so you know, that's all you're doing. But then you blend it into the rest of the picture. I don't have a lot out. It's like this area. You can have some light through there, side of his thing. You know, beautiful. If you use any more pastel, just spray it. Yeah, I'm going to leave it. I'll take the tape off. I'm going to leave it. Might do a bit more. I might glaze it and do some more to it, because it's faulty. Okay, thank you very much. Take the tape off. My brain's not working again. I haven't heard anything about classes yet, so can't give you any other info. The quicker you do them, the better, really. Stops you being too fussy. Yeah. You can always put detail in afterwards. But then, if you're going too detailed, first you get bogged down rather than doing the whole kind of thing. Yeah, I'm going to leave it. Thanks for watching. again. And I look forward to seeing your work online. Let's get my glasses on. Can't see. Thank you. Oh dear. Wednesday. Not Monday. See you Friday. See you Wednesday. Don't know what day it is. Sorry.